What's going on, people? My name is Batman, and I always see a lot of people in the comments of my Destiny videos going on about, if you don't like it, don't play it. Or like, if you hate it so much, why are you still playing it? And I just wanted to reiterate, as I've mentioned several times before, that I still take some enjoyment in the multiplayer. I haven't touched the PvE since October, nor do I intend to, but the core combat, gameplay mechanics in this game, are still enjoyable, and I've never tried to argue otherwise, and in fact that's true for the PvE as well. It's just that the PvE requires such an absurd amount of repetition and grind that it gets old fast, regardless of strong mechanics. You'll recall that in that last Destiny video I made, I talked about how it's important to separate the good from the bad in your judgments. Basically, I was taught growing up that if you're going to criticize something, you have to be able to provide a solution or alternative to the thing you are criticizing, and also that you cannot start using blanket criticisms. Like, it would be pretty easy for me to say that everything in Destiny is horrible, period, 0 out of 10, but it would also be sort of disingenuous on my part. I'm not going to pretend that I haven't had a lot of fun fucking kids up in the Crucible, and the multiplayer itself also does have a relatively high skill gap when compared to Call of Duty or like Halo 4. That skill gap, as I've mentioned before, consists of headshots, aiming in general, high recoil guns, taking advantage of the threat indicator minimap thing, mobility tactics and such. For a more in-depth analysis of Destiny's skill gap, I encourage you to watch that video I made about getting better at Destiny multiplayer. The way some people can utilize hand cannons is a great example of the skill gap, I think, because like if you use them correctly, you can drop a motherfucker in like 0.6 seconds, but I suck ass with them, and I consider them basically unusable. I think they get away with the higher skill gap in their multiplayer just because the overall emphasis of the game is on PvE, and multiplayer is sort of a side mode, if you will, which is the reverse of other prominent FPS games these days. They also try to balance it out with the supers that gives everyone a free kill at least once or twice a match. But I do tend to appreciate and gravitate towards higher skill gaps because frankly I like being rewarded for playing well. I like the ability to genuinely outplay people. A big part of my frustration, and I think most veterans' frustration with Call of Duty, and this is even before skill-based matchmaking, is that no matter how much time you put in, no matter how much you played, no matter how much you practiced, no matter how good you got, your average scores will always stay the same, just because they've tried so hard to compress the skill gap. Now, I definitely don't play nearly as much these days as I did when it first came out. I don't play Destiny multiplayer very much at all anymore. Mainly because after the DLC did come out, the vanilla playlist populations have been very low, sort of laggy because of that, long matchmaking times, and obviously I'm not going to play the DLC after I've told everyone not to buy it. And many of you have noticed that lately, most of my Destiny clips and my montages are from Dr. Leatherwood. He's a good friend of mine, and probably one of the best Destiny Crucible players in the world, frankly. Typically when I play these days, it's usually to hang out with him for a little bit, but also because I like to have a good rotation of games. I'll usually play at least 3 hours of video games a day, and that's how it was even before I was doing YouTube, it's my hobby, and since I started on YouTube, I've been playing even more often, and when you're playing that much, if you stay on one game, you'll get burnt out really fast, so I try to switch it up and sort of cycle through various games that I own, and I do cycle back to Destiny from time to time, especially because my cycle has been kind of restricted lately. Halo is still barely operational for me. I can play by myself, but in a party it always kind of fucks up, and that puts me in a really bad mood. I just don't even get on it anymore. But I also still play Destiny multiplayer because I intend to keep making Destiny videos, right? I intend to keep shining a light on its bullshit. And if I'm going to do a Destiny commentary, I'm going to want to use some Destiny gameplay. But I have heard a lot of you asking that I sort of take a break from the whole harping on Destiny thing, like I'm kind of beating a dead horse. And I agree, I understand. I am out of things to bitch about. I probably won't have another Destiny video out after this until we see what they're doing with the whole Comet DLC thing. Pretty sure you've all seen that leaked image by now. My best theory for what their plan is that they're going to release the Comet as a massive expansion pack with a bunch of content, sell it for $45 to people who already own the game, and then bundle it with the vanilla game and the 2 expansion packs they'll already have released, and then resell that whole bundled package for $60 right around this coming Christmas time to anyone who didn't buy the game. That'll be an incredibly effective way to sell it to every person who didn't buy it the first time around, or who bought it the first time around and got rid of it at some point. And if that is what they do, then y'all motherfuckers should have listened to me and held out on the DLC, because there's a much better deal in the works. And I do want to argue real quick that if I have sort of dragged out the DLC controversy, it's because I believe strongly that if you really want to affect anything, you really want anything to change, you have to sort of keep prodding the wound, you have to keep beating that dead horse, you have to keep reminding people of the problem, because otherwise people forget. We all move on. It's not that we necessarily have short attention spans, it's just that there's so much shit going on now every day. There's so much information passing in front of our eyes on the computer, at school, wherever, every day, that at a certain point, the controversy itself becomes a distant memory, controversy, and then it's not even a controversy, you know, it's not a problem, it's not something that can be used to affect change in the future. Like, I will reopen this scab when they are hyping Destiny 2, because otherwise it was all for nothing. All the work I've put into those past videos was for nothing. And not to say that I by myself, and I always try to emphasize this, not to say that I by myself am going to, you know, change the course of gaming history, but I can kind of keep reminding a section of the community, and, you know, as I've said before, they'll tell 2 people and they'll tell 2 people, just sort of keeping it out there in the general atmosphere. I hope will eventually maybe make some sort of difference. And if my only goal was to milk something for my own benefit, I would be posting much safer videos. You'll notice that on every controversial Destiny video I end up getting a lot of hate, a lot of dislikes, a lot of really negative top comments, and in the end that's a lot of potential subscribers and subsequent potential views that are basically being sacrificed every time I poke the beehive. That's why you see most YouTubers generally try to play it kind of safe, you know, because you don't want to cut yourself off from new potential subscribers. So admittedly I do benefit from these controversy videos, but that's not my sole purpose. I just want to sort of briefly defend my honor against a lot of the comments I've been getting lately. And I do still play Destiny multiplayer for fun sometimes, I'll admit that, and I don't want to pretend otherwise just because I disapprove of the game overall. For me, Destiny multiplayer is sort of the natural evolution of Halo. Like, I see it as the de facto sequel to Halo. As many of you know, I'm a big Halo fan, and to me it seems like Bungie basically did exactly what 343 ended up doing. They said, how do we put sprint, ADS, and a very low time to kill in Halo, and they came up with Destiny, and 343 came up with Halo 4, and honestly I prefer the natural evolution of Halo in Destiny to that of Halo 4, and perhaps even to Halo 5. I haven't played it enough to accurately judge it, but as many of you know, my initial impression was just kind of like meh, but we'll see. And I've also been seeing a lot of people asking that I sort of cut back on the amount of Blink shotgun clips I'm using. I know maybe that's getting old after like 5 videos consisting of several hours worth of footage of just Blink shoddy spam. I know it irritates a lot of people who hate Blink shotgun gameplay in Destiny, period. So I talked to Leatherwood. Both he and I in future videos, I suppose, will try to use more fusion rifles or snipers or something. The only problem is I suck ass with those guns, so it might take a little longer to get the videos out. And I know this is going to piss people off, as my Destiny gameplay often does piss people off, but the cold hard truth is that I've really enjoyed spamming Blink and shotguns. It's like my favorite thing to do in Destiny, and definitely makes it into the top 5 of my favorite things to do in FPS games, period, or in general right now. And honestly, half the fun is just knowing that the person I'm killing is frustrated. Something you should all understand about me is that when it comes to FPS multiplayer, I am a sadistic fuck. I want to hurt my opponents. I have some emotional issues dating back to when I was in high school, and I had anger problems because I was lifting way too much and hitting puberty, and my testosterone was jacked through the fucking roof, and I stupidly tried to relax by playing FPS multiplayer video games. And there were 2 separate occasions that really left me with some mental instability when it comes to online multiplayer. The first was in Call of Duty Black Ops. I was playing Search and Destroy on Hanoi, and this guy on my own team blew up an explosive barrel right next to me, right off the spawn, as I was walking forward, and then laughed maniacally into the mic. And it wasn't like a huge deal, but I remember being really pissed off, and something stuck with me about how evil and inconsiderate it was. That was the night it first occurred to me that nobody really gives a shit about you if they don't know you. And in fact, because the nature of online multiplayer makes it so easy to depersonalize the person you're committing unjust acts against, that people in fact take a lot of pleasure in just acting like total fucking assholes. And then later on that same year, I was playing Halo Reach, Big Team Battle, and I picked up the sniper, and this guy killed me for it, which isn't too abnormal, it isn't too surprising, it happens. So I went and tried to get revenge, like you do, to get my sniper back. But then, he had a party of like 4, and they each took turns killing me 2 times a player because you can get 2 betrayals a person, right? You can get 2 betrayals without getting kicked. So I got betrayed like 8 times in a fucking row without being able to boot anyone. So I rage quit. But this was when Reach would ban you if you quit, so I got banned for 10 minutes for quitting a match where I had just spent 15 minutes getting betrayed a dozen times. And I just snapped, and I punched a hole in the wall, and that night I declared that I would be as evil as I possibly fucking could to any player I ever played with who wasn't in my party. Some men just want to watch the online multiplayer community burn, and I used to be one of them. I've calmed down a lot since then. I aggressively increased the amount of marijuana I was smoking, and that seems to have helped a lot, but there's still a part of me that just takes like a sick, twisted, sadistic pleasure in knowing that the person I just killed is angry because of the way I killed them. And like even when I see people in the comments getting mad at me for overusing Blink and shotgun, I get a little rush to my boner because it's like, yes, I clearly made that person revisit some frustrating memory of getting blinked up the butt. Because I know Blink is fucking frustrating to fight against. I hate fighting against Blink. it aggravates the shit out of me, which is what makes it that much more enjoyable to do to other people. And to be fair, I do think Blink is OP. And from an objective standpoint, I do advocate for its nerfing. I think it would be a lot fairer if it traveled the same distance at the same speed, but kept the player on screen, no disappearing and then reappearing, instead just like a really fast boost, because what makes it so impossible to deal with is that when the guy disappears for the teleport, however briefly, you have no idea which direction or what angle the guy is going to rematerialize at, and you have to basically hope to get a lucky guess, which is fucked up, because most of the time you're not going to get the lucky guess, and he's going to take a dump on your face from above. Something else that I think also needs a nerf that pisses me off hella bad is the tripwire grenade. I dislike the tripwire grenade for the same reason I disliked the IED back in Call of Duty Ghosts. I don't think it's fair to be able to throw at long distance a landmine. Because when you're able to throw it, it now not only works as a grenade in the sense that you can chuck it at range, and if it lands within the blast radius, or I guess you call it the blast line of sight, of an opponent, they'll die the same way a regular grenade would kill them. It just means they have to move before it explodes. But they are still just as fucked as if it blew up on its own. In fact, more so, because it's much higher damage than other grenades and almost always gets the one-shot kill, or in this case I suppose it's a one-shot blast. But then, if you happen to fuck up your grenade throw, you still have a very high chance of getting a free kill in the instance that someone else walks by it. Like if you're in any type of high traffic area, like Firebase Delphi, in any part of that building that holds the B flag, if you throw your grenade terribly and miss your intended target by a lot, you're still kind of guaranteed a kill, because sooner or later someone will walk by where you threw that grenade, poorly. Because it still works like a landmine, so it's a very powerful one-shot kill kind of grenade that can still get the kill even if you mess up the throw, which gives it a distinct advantage over things like the heat-seeking type grenades, which can't get the kill on a full health opponent even when they are thrown very well, the Titan's area of effect grenade, which usually requires much more than one blast to get the kill, the fusion grenades, which are one blast kills but have to land almost directly on the opponent's body, which requires a very good throw, and on top of that, the tripwire can be thrown as far as other grenades, meaning players can set up free kills on the B flag or any other high traffic area without having to put themselves in any real danger. And there's no way to nerf the fact that it's both a grenade and a landmine, but for the sake of balance, a nerf to the range at which it can be thrown, and or a nerf to the range at which it detects and is triggered by opponents, I think would go a long ways towards making it a more fair mechanic. And the last little balance tweak I think this game needs, and this is an important one, involves the motherfucking fusion rifle, alright? Now, I know they recently nerfed the fusion rifle somewhat, but they didn't do it correctly. In fact, I think they should remove that most recent nerf and replace it with the one I'm about to suggest, alright? Because they nerfed its stats when what it needs is a nerf to its core mechanic. I've always gotten really pissed off at fusion rifles, and I've always thought they were overpowered, but I couldn't explain why. I didn't know what about it was overpowered, so I didn't say anything, but I just had this feeling in my gut every time it killed me that there was something unfair about it, and I finally figured out what it is that I think is bullshit, alright? And it's not super overpowered, but it has one mechanic that I would argue gives it an unfair advantage in most of the scenarios you encounter it in. Hear me out here. So, the fusion rifle is very high damage and pretty long range, right? So, if the fusion rifle worked like a scout rifle, if it was just semi-auto, and you could just tap the trigger, and it fires a fully charged burst, one-shot kill on command, everyone would agree it was overpowered. That's kind of why people thought the Vex Mytho class was overpowered. The mechanic that is supposed to balance the fusion rifle out is the charge time, right? You have to time that shot out perfectly, and if you fuck it up, you're in trouble because you have to fully recharge it again to fire another shot, and in that time, you can get killed. So the charging up is the nerf, the handicap, that keeps it balanced, because otherwise it would just be a ridiculously good scout rifle, and you could tap the trigger and, fire off a fully charged shot. However, I would argue that it is very possible to basically cheese the fusion rifle nerf, and that very many fusion rifle players are doing just this. There are two advantages this weapon has that makes cheesing its handicap so easy. The first is the radar. The radar gives advance warning of when you are going to encounter an enemy, which disproportionately benefits the fusion rifle user, because that advance warning does a lot to assist the fusion rifle user in timing their charge up, whereas with an auto rifle or shotgun or what have you, the advance warning is helpful, but it doesn't do much to negate their intentional balanced disadvantages such as recoil or lower damage, or in the case of the shotgun, the radar rarely clarifies ranges. For instance, if the middle rung is red, the guy could be so close he's about to enter the center point blank range of the radar, or he's so far he's about to enter the far outskirts of the radar. With most weapons, the radar lets you know the location of enemy, but it doesn't provide a distinct advantage to your weapon unless your weapon's effectiveness is predicated entirely on timing, in which case that advance warning to start charging your shit up will be very, very helpful. But the radar by itself isn't what makes the fusion rifle OP. It's the combination of the radar, that advance warning, and the fusion rifle's ability to remain in a constant state of charging up. This technique where the fusion rifle user, upon seeing that red indicator on their radar, just keeps tapping the trigger continually, keeping the rifle charged up continuously, which completely cheeses the fusion rifle's distinct balancing nerf. the mechanic that is supposed to balance it out, because when they actually see their enemy, the fusion rifle is often already charged a considerable amount, oftentimes 50 to 90% of fully charged, which completely negates the timing skill gap that's meant to balance out the weapon. You see what I'm getting at here? They get the advanced warning on radar, which gives them the opportunity to begin pre-charging, and by the time they actually make visual contact with the guy, they already have a charge essentially ready to go. So this isn't a huge balancing problem. I don't want to pretend this is a bigger deal than it really is, but a simple way to fix this problem would be to require the fusion rifle user to commit to firing the burst if they charge the weapon a certain amount. So for instance, if you charge the fusion rifle over 50% of the way, you should have to commit to firing that burst. So even if you let go of the trigger after you've charged 50%, it goes the next 50% of the way automatically. You have to commit to that burst. This way, players can still do that pre-charge stuff, but they can't get away with, sort of abusing that mechanic in a way that negates the nerf that is supposed to balance out the auto rifles. And I think Bungie should seriously consider this, because fusion rifles irritate me greatly, and the more irritated I am, the more likely I am to make 30-minute videos talking shit about Destiny. And so if they can reduce the amount of times that I'm getting fucking furious at the motherfuckers charging up their little rifles again and again, and I know that if I go in there, I'm going to take it in the face, so I try anyways, and then I take it in the face, I get irritated. If they can reduce the amount of times that's happening, then in the long run, they may also reduce the amount of shit talking I do. JS. That took a lot longer to describe than it was supposed to be. Honestly, this video was supposed to be like under 10 minutes, because I was trying to make like a video, because there's people asking for, shorter videos, and I get that, people want shorter videos. So I was like, alright, I'm gonna make a shorter video. This is my attempt at a short video. Think about that for a second. I am physically incapable of keeping it short. I keep it long. The For the Win query of the day is, what is the meanest thing anyone has ever done to you in online multiplayer? Please rate the video. This is Batman signing out.